before starting on a transformation journey, organizations need to do the best they can to ensure that even the person running the transformation or in charge and their stakeholders that are involved really understand their customers properly. Mm-hmm. This means going wide with one-on-one interviews and observing people or how people use your products or service.
Hello and welcome to a whole new episode of Engati Engage. I'm your host, Jeremy D'Souza, and today we have Jakomi Mathews on our show. But before we begin the interview, allow me to introduce you to the magic of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform, available across 14 channels with 25,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by Inc.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog, the video channel, and the Engati Engage podcast, receiving upwards of 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest. Jakomi Mathews is a senior product, CX, innovation, and strategy executive with verifiable year-after-year success, achieving revenue, profit, and business growth objectives within startups, turnaround, and rapid change environments across e-health, SaaS, e-commerce, web, and mobile. He's highly successful in building relationships with CXOs, decision makers, seizing control of critical problem areas, and delivering on commitments. Customer-focused and performance-driven, he's led and motivated worldwide teams and managed P&L for business division. Jakomi, it's really great to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we get into the interview, we have a quick announcement for the entire audience, and it's that we have something special for all of you. So stick around to the end of the interview, and you'll get your special gift from us. Jakomi, let's get started with this.
Okay, let's do it.
So my first question to you is, what is the one major difference when it comes to CX between the education industry and all the other sectors?
Well, I would state at a baseline, it still comes down to the stakeholders that are being serviced. So not sure it is all that different, except perhaps that you have different layers of competing stakeholders that all need to be delivered a good CX outcome. Now, these people include students, parents, teachers, school administrators, and government education departments. Mm-hmm. There's quite a few and quite a mix with competing desires or needs, shall I say. But after working within the ed sector, I'll suggest that a lot of businesses presume their stakeholders need or want. They presume what they need or want, but they do not necessarily validate those presumptions using CX research best practice.
Yeah.
And whilst consulting for Edval, a leading Australian edtech provider that provides technology solutions to schools in Australia and overseas, I led a CX process that delivered good insights that enabled the organisation to actually understand the importance of CX and the benefits it can deliver to both product design, product delivery, and ultimately driving better customer value outcomes. Yeah. That's sort of what I don't think it's that different from other sectors. I just think it's all about the stakeholders when you talk about and what the layer and layers of those stakeholders are.
Yeah. So it ties down. It's pretty similar to the other industries, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, literally everyone is currently jumping onto and driving for digital transformations. How would you advise organizations to go about planning their digital journeys? And what functions would you want to start on first before anything else?
Digital transformation. Critically, I would state the word digital is a little overused with transformation per se. To me, it is what is required to deliver organizational transformation, whether that's digital or otherwise. Yeah. The use of digital tools to drive better productivity outcomes are an output of successful transformation processes, but they are not the means to a successful organizational transformation. To drive a successful outcome when undertaking a transformation, businesses or organizations really need to look internally first to build internal alignment. As if there is non-internal alignment across the employee value chain, from the board right through to the shop front, then no matter what transformation is planned, it will almost certainly fail.
Yeah.
So you've first got to get your internal alignment around present pain points and potential solutions. That's what an organization needs to do first. Then go out and research what actually delivers value for your customers from their perspective, not your business's. Determine what hypotheses the business needs to validate or invalidate to be able to make the right transformation decisions. I find using the jobs to be done framework extremely helpful in this area. And finally, really, once you have the top-down and bottom-up internal alignment across pain points and potential solutions, you need to map that to what you uncovered in your CX customer research across the customer's end-to-end experiences and touch points across both physical and digital.
Yeah.
And you need to do this within your organization. This will then enable you to identify product opportunities for your organization. And it's especially important when thinking about how do we select areas for improvement and innovation to focus on. Because a real key challenge for a lot of businesses in product development is really the question of how do we select areas for improvement and innovation to focus on. And I like using the jobs to be done framework, and also there's a calculation you can use to prioritize which jobs to focus on around two factors: the level of importance associated with getting the job done and the level of satisfaction associated with getting the job done from the customer's perspective. And to do this effectively, you really need to build out generating desired outcome statements. Now, this involves getting users to rate them for both importance and satisfaction via a survey. Then you calculate the score for each statement. This is determined by taking the score for importance and adding the satisfaction gap. Now, that satisfaction gap is the important minus satisfaction. And this score really intentionally only focuses on the customer opportunity, not the financial opportunity, not the market size opportunity. But it allows you to really determine and prioritize what you should be focusing on in respect of delivering the core for the business, the core customer experience.
So great. It's essentially all about, not just completely focusing on a digital transformation, but trying to see what drives more value for your customers as a whole, right?
Totally. And I see customer experience is across, it doesn't know the difference between digital and physical. Customer experience is the foundation, the pillars of the design stack, because it looks end to end across every touch point for every user journey. And then you have UX, which sort of more looks at each bite-sized element within that end-to-end bigger picture. So it might look just on the mobile side, it might look just on the website or in the shop side. And so that's really important. And then you have the information architecture and then the UI, which makes the actual interaction from a digital perspective look nice and what real customers actually get to touch and interact with. But yeah.
Okay. What would you say are the key elements of a successful CX strategy and implementing that strategy? And how would you define and measure the success of such strategy?
It's a good question there. Look, I've worked across a number of major transformation initiatives in Australia and also one with KFC Thailand in the last decade. And this is quite subjective. As delivery of successful CX strategies, implementation will depend on each organization's context. However, I would suggest that really critical to that success, and it's going to sound like I'm harping on about it, but it is because it's so important, It's having that proper internal organizational alignment, as this is critical to delivering successful transformation. Now, it needs to be both top down, bottom up, to deliver the foundations for successful implementation of whatever the strategy is adopted.
Yeah.
Because you will have a very high chance of failure if internal alignment is not successfully achieved.
Mm-hmm.
Now, defining and measuring success, in my view, is really dependent on organizational priorities.
Yeah.
However, I would state that this is the business going to define success on just business metrics or also customer metrics?
Mm-hmm.
Whilst NPS has some pros, it also has a lot of cons, as it is regularly misused and or misunderstood.
Yeah.
Whilst it is used to, in my view, rather crudely measure customer satisfaction, too many executive level or boards can easily game it by the questions they ask without delving deeper to look under the hood of what customers really want and or need, and is the business actually delivering on that?
Yeah, definitely.
Other good metrics include customer lifetime value, where I would actually see if the business is actually delivering on that, or is the time scale for that customer lifetime value increasing along with the revenue? Are support calls and interactions dropping for your product and or services? If so, the critical question is that because there are less issues, or is it because customers got fed up and started using competitor product or service instead?
Mm-hmm.
And sort of really, I think too many organizations jump to A/B testing first, which is only good for understanding the how and the what, but it does not answer the why question of why a customer does what they do. And I think that's really critical, because understanding why a customer does what they do can give you competitive advantage. The underlying psychological reasons customers use a product in a certain context.
Mm-hmm.
And that's got to come before you do the how and the what, in my view.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too many organizations rely too much on A/B testing without undertaking in-depth and wide one-to-one customer interviews. First, as this is the area where you really uncover elements that can deliver your business that competitive advantage I mentioned earlier, and then validate or invalidate those hypotheses with A/B testing. By undertaking wide one-to-one customer interviews, it should guide you as to what you want to A/B test. And if you use them in unison, then you can achieve great outcomes. Now, summing up, I define success in transformation by solving customer pain points and delivering experiences that deliver real value to customers. But to do this, you really need to understand the why questions.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it most certainly does. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Chatbots and automation are being increasingly adopted for lead capturing and customer support. Do you see a significant adoption in industries in Australia, and what industries are leading their adoption?
I do see an increasing adoption of chatbots for both of those user cases in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's always room for improvement, and in respect of chatbots, I think currently in the Australian market, they serve a purpose, and organisations should all use chatbots as a first line of customer support, but then have them set up within their own organisational boundaries so as to be able to hand off to a real human when the chatbot cannot adequately serve the customer's queries. Mm-hmm. And that's really of critical importance. As without such a function or the ability to do that, and that's where I find the gap between businesses trying to bring those two things together. Chatbots can actually cause more customer dissatisfaction with an organization's brand instead of improving it. That's why it's so important. You need to understand when it's got to be hand off to a real human to be able to adequately answer about customers and be able to do that in real time while the chatbot and the consumer customer are actually interacting.
So what about a situation in which, the chatbot can sense that, okay, this is a question that I can answer, this is a question that I can't answer. So let me set this question straight off to an agent who can answer that for you.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's what needs to do. But I don't think Australia's got that. I remember when I worked at Velocity Frequent Flyer, Virgin Australia's Frequent Flyer loyalty program, we had allowed people to use Facebook Messenger for queries, but it sometimes took them 2 to 3 days to get back to those customers. Now, that's an appalling customer experience in anyone's book, in my view. A chatbot would have been a very good idea to use in that respect.
Yeah.
But on a positive note, I think a massive emerging opportunity with chatbots is actually integrating them into voice assistant interaction to solve customer problems as the next frontier or evolution, if you like, for the chatbot sector. So integrating them with OK Google, Siri, Alexa, and that type of interaction so they can solve customers' problems. And that's sort of happening, but I'd see that as a definite area of opportunity that is growing.
Yeah, certainly. Makes life much easier than having to type something in.
Totally.
So my next question to you is, since you believe that mobile is changing the world, right? How are organizations approaching a mobile strategy outside of just using it for voice connecting to their customers?
Well, there's so many examples. Banks have enabled customers to transact via mobile and web applications for almost a full decade to date in our Western world. It actually started happening in the African continent first, is where mobile banking actually occurred in the around 2004 by M-Pesa. Mobile, it was all SMS, but they were undertaking transactions. The fact that the mobile device has become a wallet, a calendar, a camera, means it has become indispensable to its user. It's an all-in-one device. More Google searches are made via mobile than web in 2020, which is quite an amazing statistic. Brands and organizations need to ensure they get their mobile customer experience right or risk losing to their competitors, as mobile is primarily used to interact with brands, organizations during transits from to and from work or whilst the user is at home watching TV. Those are moments you've usually got that user's attention to drive an experience with using your product or service via mobile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes absolute sense. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think really on this sort of thing of transformation, before starting on a transformation journey, organizations need to do the best they can to ensure that even the person running the transformation or in charge and their stakeholders that are involved really understand their customers properly. Mm-hmm. This means going wide with one-on-one interviews and observing people or how people use your products or service. This will help to validate and invalidate business assumptions and ultimately serve your customers better. Mm-hmm. The sad fact is this important first step is all too often neglected, or in worst case scenarios, not ever done. It's all just presumed we're doing this without really understanding whether it's going to deliver value to your customer. And for me, CX is about understanding your customer without your own and the business's unconscious biases getting in the way. It's getting rid of these unconscious biases from actually making cloud decisions. So getting away from that is the only true way you can really improve or build products that deliver or improve customer value.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can't understand what your customers are all about, how are you going to create great experiences for them?
Yeah, you create experiences, but they would be subpar in my view, because you're going to miss some are the key points of what's really value for the customer. If you presume what the customer wants, you really need to get there and really understand what is valuable for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't just make assumptions. You need to actually interact with them and figure stuff out with them. Needs to be maybe a collaborative effort of sorts with your customers.
Definitely.
Okay, so this has been a great interview, Jakomi. Thank you so much for your time. Your insights were really, really valuable.
Thank
Um,
you, Jeremy, as well. And if you have any follow-up questions or any people make comments or have questions after they see this, please feel free to send them through and I'll see what I can do to answer them.
yeah, and the audience, if you all have any other questions for Jakomi, you can reach him directly on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Go for it. He's a real amazing resource. Okay, and since all of y'all have stuck around for so long, we're really excited to announce that our ebook, The Evolution of Customer Experience, is out. It's available to download for free. Check the link in the description for more details on how to create, memorable experiences without having to break the bank. So, Engati Engage will be back with a new episode and a new expert really soon. Stay tuned and definitely go follow Jakomi. He's a real great resource.
Thank you. Take care.